So the last thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about cost. Cost is a major consideration when you're talking about this, particularly when you're talking about taking a pistol for pistol and you're talking about ongoing expenses. Combatives is something that has to be trained frequently. It's not something that you go and you sign up for Craig Douglas's classes or one of my classes and you do this thing like once and you never go back. If you practiced shooting on a range once and never went back, how good would you be? If you practiced boxing once in your life and never practiced again, how good would you be? Combatives is something that has to be maintained. You need to continue to do it. You need to practice. You need force on force. You need to lose. You need to win. You need all of those things, all those functions of an actual martial art. You need that in order to be able to maintain proficiency. So in order to do that, it has to not be cost prohibitive. One of the things that I had talked about was I talked about the UTM rounds and the fact that those rounds weigh a certain amount and that they're coming out at a certain velocity, and that creates enough kinetic energy that people are basically having to pad up head to toe. So that means that you're going to require a helmet that is more conducive to that larger kinetic energy, that greater amount of kinetic energy. And now you're talking about something in the area of a high gear helmet. High gear helmets run about $450. They are well suited for simunitions or UTMs. People use them all the time. The downside to using a high gear helmet is the fact that as martial arts and as self-defense really gravitates more and more and more towards a grappling role, and I don't just mean ground fighting, I mean grappling in the sense of stand-up grappling, grappling on the ground, all these types of things, as it gravitates more and more into that area, it becomes increasingly unrealistic to grapple with this giant mega noggin helmet on your head. By the same token, there is a certain amount of pain that is necessary in the learning process. I want to feel pain that gives me negative feedback to let me know, hey, I made a mistake in this area. So you don't want a helmet that is so big that it completely robs you of that pain experience and that stress inoculation that you're looking for, but by the same token you don't want it so small that you run the risk of injury. So one of the things that I had talked to Tony Blauer about some time ago when he and I had kind of met up in Las Vegas was the development of the high gear equipment, and those were some of the challenges that he had, was basically coming up with a helmet that was big enough that it provided with safety, but small enough that it had functionality and realism. The problem is that you back up 20 years ago, grappling wasn't what it was today. Grappling is becoming more and more prevalent. More and more people are doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and as self-defense really gravitates more towards a grappling role, the distances are coming closer. The need to be able to articulate your head all around, tuck your chin, do all these things become greater. The opportunity or the chance that somebody is going to grab me, throw me to the ground, take my back and try and sink a choke in, it becomes that much more possible. And what I don't want is, as an instructor, I don't want to have to stop the match every single time somebody tries to go for a choke because the helmet got ripped off, because it was never really designed to grapple with. It was designed for strikes. It was designed to defeat simunitions and UTM rounds. So we want to have a helmet system that is set up that it can do that. Now this is one of the things, this is a custom helmet that I've produced. Still working on a couple of different prototypes, but what we have is a hard plastic mesh in the front. We have a polycarbonate lens across the front, and basically this is a boxing helmet with an exoskeleton shell on it. You can articulate your head, you can put this thing on, you can protect yourself in the same exact way. This is essentially the same as a sparring helmet that you would wear if you were boxing or doing MMA. You can grapple in it, you can do everything. This thing's not going to get ripped off your head in the same way that maybe a high gear helmet would. But it is going to defeat airsoft rounds. Now it will not defeat simunition rounds, again, because of the increase in kinetic energy between the airsoft and the simunition because of the weight of the projectile. So this is probably $75, somewhere in that area. By the time, again, if I actually start producing these and selling these, they're going to be about 75 bucks. The base helmet itself is, I think, maybe 37 bucks, something like that. It's under $40, and then from there, if you want to outfit your own polycarbonate lens and mesh in there, by all means, go ahead and do so. But if I do decide to go ahead and start producing these and selling them, they'll probably be in the area of about $75. So that's the cost there versus $450 for a high gear helmet. The pistol itself, like I said, Glock 17 is roughly around 170 bucks. Versus a conversion kit for your actual, live Glock 17 is around 450 bucks. So there's a pretty significant difference there. The BBs itself, you can buy 2,000 BBs for like 18 bucks. It's ridiculously cheap, and you can get even biodegradable BBs. And this kind of gets into another thing that is in my opinion better suited for airsoft is if you use the biodegradable BBs versus UTMs, one of the things that you're going to have is as you're holding classes, as you're conducting training out in exterior facilities, is the fact that you're going to have those brass casings everywhere. And typically, you guys who've ever done any work with the military or law enforcement, when you get down at the range, what do? You got to walk around, you got to police your brass. It's not going to be any different with UTMs. All this ammunition training that I did, we had to do that consistently. We would walk around, we'd have to pick up, brass. Versus airsoft, if you do these in an exterior environment, the BBs are actually biodegradable. They'll break down in the rain, and in a couple of weeks they're gone, they disappear. So it's not really that much of an issue. The ammo itself for the UTMs, for 50 rounds you're looking at 30 bucks. That comes to about 60 cents a round versus roughly like 3 cents a round or less than that for airsoft if you actually boil the price down. So all told, and I'll post a chart, you can check this chart out, that gives you the different prices, but all told you're looking at about $234 investment for a pistol with a magazine, with everything that you need to be able to run it in a close combat type class, in a combatives type class. The helmet, everything, you're looking at about $234 to go the airsoft route, versus if you did this with UTMs, you're looking at about almost $1,200. So pretty significant difference in cost, the upkeep, everything that you're going to end up having to do, the ongoing cost, the ongoing purchase of the rounds and things like that is pretty significant. So it's definitely something to take into consideration. It's one of the reasons why when guys ask me about force on force, they ask me about what platforms are best and stuff like that. One of the first questions that I ask is, what are you using it for? If you're using it for urban type warfare, urban training, something like this, UTMs are probably the way to go. That's going to be better suited for what you're doing. If you're doing CQB, you could really, depending on kind of the distances that you're planning on training, large warehouses or versus maybe commercial office buildings, depending on what you're looking for there, you could really go UTM or airsoft. But when you're talking about combatives, there's really no comparison. Airsoft is by far superior to UTMs. It gives you all the same functionality, same rate of fire. If you want full auto, it's got that capability. You have all of these same functions that you would have in a real firearm for a fraction of the cost. And like I said, if you break something, it's a few bucks here and there to fix it, and it's very easy to fix. So something to think about there. I wanted to give you guys, I'm going to put some links down there for you guys to look at the different equipment. I've got some pictures throughout the video for you guys to kind of see the differences of what we're looking at. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. All right, train on.